My boyfriend has been secretly jealous of all the hobbies that I spend time on, as he feels that I'm not spending enough time with him. So in retaliation, he destroyed nearly all of my personal property related to my hobbies. And now I'm left with hundreds of dollars worth of personal property damage, as well as feeling devastated for the sentimental value that I just lost. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So this is honestly the weirdest thing I've ever experienced, and I have no idea what to do. So I'm a 21-year-old female and I have lots of hobbies. I'm sort of what you might call a hobby collector, but my top ones right now are running and training for a marathon, as well as baking, reading, and also doing something called junk journaling. And with that last one, I'm not sure if anyone is familiar. But more specifically, I've been doing reading since I was just a young teenager. This started about 6 months ago when I saw that several of my old books were dog-eared, which I don't do to my books. I asked my boyfriend if he had read them, which I would be totally fine with, by the way, but he insisted that he had not touched them at all. And I thought to myself, okay, that's weird, but whatever. Then after that, I literally could never find my running shoes. I bought a rather expensive pair and keep them separate from my other shoes because I'm a nurse and my hospital shoes are really nasty. But the running shoes I could never find. They would always turn up days later though, somewhere I definitely had not put them. Again, this is weird, but nothing to really raise any alarms. But then my journal got completely destroyed. Somehow, it was left outside in our garage, where it is known to leak when it rains. It didn't necessarily get water damage, but the moisture made all my pages peel up and practically ruined 28 pages of it. The pages take me over an hour each, and I'm quite proud of them. So 28 plus hours of artwork is just ruined. Now, this might sound really stupid, but I genuinely started to believe the house was haunted. I did shed a few tears over my journal, and my boyfriend rolled his eyes at that, but helped me glue them all back down and salvage as much as possible. I had a fleeting thought that he put it out there, but it was honestly so weird. I was like, why would he do that? Then it was back to my books. I had a huge bookshelf of about 200 books because I read books daily, but I started to notice that one by one, they were all disappearing, like straight up gone. I searched every corner of the house and I could not find them. I even texted all three of my sisters, my brother, and my boyfriend's sister, asking if they had borrowed any of them and just didn't tell me, but they all said that they had not. My boyfriend's sister borrows my books often, but she always asked me first and insisted that she didn't have any of them. And when this happened, I was thinking to myself, okay, what is going on? But then it started happening with my baking. I could never find my mixers or my baking sheets or anything whenever I wanted to bake. The final straw though was when I found my KitchenAid mixer broken. It would literally just not turn on. And if you don't know, those things are expensive. So I straight up asked him, did you do this? Like, why is all this stuff broken or lost recently? Well, he finally admitted to purposefully hiding or breaking my things because my hobbies annoyed him. And when he said that, I was honestly blown away. I'm not gonna lie, at that point I exploded. I told him he was a weirdo for touching my stuff and that it was honestly so strange to do this as an adult. He proceeded to defend himself, saying that I was spending more time on my made-up hobbies than on him, and this was the only way to make me focus on our relationship again. Which for context, by the way, isn't true at all. I thought that we had a great relationship. We go on dates twice a week, we spend quality time together regularly, if you know what I mean, and we get along with each other's family and friends. Like, I'm so confused. We've been together for 2 whole years. I love him so much, and other than this odd behavior, he's so good to me. After that argument, I was genuinely so distraught that I left the house and I went to the house my sisters live in, as they live together. They also agreed that it was the oddest thing in the world. The icing on the cake, though, is that when I got home this morning, he threw out all of my stuff. He cut the soles out of my running shoes, he cut the laces, he threw out my Apple Watch and destroyed my baking items, he cut up the silicone molds, and the box that had all of my missing books in it, they were in the dumpster with all of my other journal supplies. The journal he helped me fix was torn to shreds, and at this point, I genuinely started to sob. I know it sounds dumb and overdramatic, but I genuinely worked so hard on my journal that it made me cry. Literally hundreds of dollars, and some of my favorite books in the trash. Money spent on baking supplies, which I used to bake for my baby cousin's elementary school. All of it just completely ruined. I just don't understand what is wrong with him. He's never been like this before, ever. I'm genuinely so confused about what's gotten into him. Is it something else that he could be projecting or something like that? Because at this point, I'm genuinely so confused and I don't know what to do. Wow, this guy's a massive jerk. Like, this guy went crazy. He started throwing all your stuff out and destroying your property, all because you weren't spending enough time with him. Like, if that doesn't prove that he's overly controlling and he absolutely is a violent narcissist, then I don't know what will. Like, to the original poster, I'm being completely serious. This guy not only doesn't sound safe, but he also sounds crazy. Like, any rational human being wouldn't go about destroying your stuff all because you assume that they're not spending enough time with you. Like, if he really felt that he was left out of this relationship, he very easily could have talked to you and said, hey, I want to spend more time together. Or at least find some kind of like compromise in like how you spend your time or something like that, even though it sounds like you weren't doing anything wrong in the first place. Like, this guy just sounds straight up crazy. I can't imagine wanting to not only stay with someone like that, but also wanting to live under the same roof as someone like that. Like, if I was in your shoes, I'd be dumping him so fast, I'd be moving out of that place, and I would also be half tempted to file like a police report because you said it yourself. This guy destroyed hundreds of hours worth of personal property for you, and a lot of this is sentimental that you absolutely can never get back. Like, this guy, who I hope is soon to be your ex-boyfriend, quite literally is a monster in my opinion, and you do not deserve this kind of treatment in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. I work as a server and I finally caught COVID. And now, after being quarantined for 5 days, I'm getting ready to go back to work, but I seriously don't feel ready. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, so I am currently at a complete loss. I have been a career server for almost 10 years, and I have worked mainly in fine dining for the past 5 to 6 years. I was one of the lucky few who had not caught COVID-19 throughout the pandemic and was able to go back to working in the restaurant after lockdowns were lifted. Well, this past Friday, I was feeling sick with what I thought to be a moderate cold or flu situation. I knew I wasn't going to be able to come in on a busy night, especially if I'm not feeling well, so I opted to go to an urgent care to get a note and show management that yes, I truly was under the weather. Unfortunately for me, I was told I did in fact have COVID, and because I'm an asthmatic and a high risk for hospitalization, I should immediately start medication while quarantined. Now, my quarantine was only 5 days, but I reached out to my management to extend it by 2 days since I still had not been feeling great. They have been kind yet very distant about everything, and they helped me find coverage. However, I have realized everything I do makes me totally winded. I am on the road to recovery now and without fevers, chills, and sneezing, but my shortness of breath happens when I walk around too much or even stand too long. I am now horrified to go back to work the day after tomorrow when my shift starts back up. I really feel at a loss because I am not qualified for other jobs, and I worry I can no longer perform the same extensive work I used to. Before COVID, I would lift up to 50 pounds for a tray, I would be fast walking around the large dining room, and I would be keeping up with the tables. I genuinely don't know what to do. I don't want to quit or even worse, get fired. Has anyone ever had something like this happen to them? I know long COVID is diagnosed about 2 months out, so I won't be able to apply for any type of assistance as of now. I mean, should I just grin and bear it through the breathlessness? I even have a hard time walking and talking with my significant other as of now, and I worry about waiting on tables in the same way. It makes me question if my serving days are behind me. I really need this money, and honestly, I simply don't know what to do. This is really awful. Like, seriously, I understand where you're coming from. You are incredibly worried you're about to lose your job or like not be able to work at your job, and this is literally the only thing that you're good at. But I know if I was in your shoes, I would go directly to my doctor and be like, hey, I need a note of some kind stating that I can't work for long periods of time and that you need to have like a lighter load at work or something like that. But hopefully you have managers who have a soul and they're like, oh, I totally understand, take your time. Or they at least give you a lighter load because you're literally just now getting over COVID. It's only been 5 days and you still feel like garbage because at this point you are definitely not running at 100%. And hopefully your managers see that when you show up for work. Am I the jerk for pretending that I didn't know I was adopted just to make my teacher feel incredibly embarrassed? Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm in high school and this was in my English class. Our real teacher is on a paternity leave, so we have a long-term substitute. So yesterday she was telling us she wants us to write personal memoirs about something very important in our lives, and she goes about listing various examples for different students. She then told me that I could write about being adopted and how I felt when my parents told me. Now, I must have made a face then because I'm not adopted. I have 2 dads, but they had me through surrogacy, so technically technically there was a legal adoption from my non-biological dad, but one of my dads is my biological dad, and my biological mom is my other dad's sister who donated her egg and carried me. I think it would be a stretch to call me adopted. Also, this substitute has no basis to even know any of this because anything I've written in class is just about having two dads. Anyway, she's kind of old school and doesn't like when we talk too loud, which to her is talking at a normal indoor level on group assignments, or when we make any normal faces or anything. So she basically called me out on making a face and said to me, if you don't want to write about being adopted, you can choose another important topic in your life. Maybe about how you help your dad at home. Now for reference, one of my dads has cerebral palsy and is mostly blind from optic neuropathy. I did write briefly about that in the intro assignment with our other teacher, so he must have left them with her to get to know the class. Now I was so confused, so I said to her, I'm not adopted. She just put her hand over her heart and goes, oh honey. So now my brain, which was lagging, finally caught up and realized she's only thinking I'm adopted, all because I have two dads. So at this point, I'm like, whatever, I'll just play into it. So I look upset and I say to her, I didn't know I was adopted. Now at this point, she's kind of panicking a bit and telling everyone to just start writing something. A lot of my friends are laughing under their breath because they know I'm not adopted. So she's telling everyone to quiet down and that it's not funny and to just get to work. But I'm just like, what do you mean I'm adopted? She's trying to tell me not to worry about it and just ask my dad's when I get home. And I'm like, how can I be adopted? So she just sends me to the school counselor and I told her this story basically, and she just gave off the vibe that it was awful to mess with a sub in that way, and I could have just explained that I'm not adopted because now I've made her worry unnecessarily and I've embarrassed her. Now here's the thing, I do not think parts of my life are up to her to decide what I want to share or not, and I feel like it's on her if she feels embarrassed for assumptions that she made. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? I don't think you're the jerk at all, and I personally think that the substitute teacher there is completely in the wrong, and I would even go as far as to say that she needs to be reported. Here's the thing, I don't blame you for playing a prank on her, but for her to even share that information in the first place is like a massive breach of trust. She is sharing something that is absolutely none of her business, and it really comes off as intrusive and incredibly rude. Like, you don't just do that to someone without talking to him first. Like, if I knew something about somebody else and I decided to share that information with like the entire class or another group of people, all without their permission in the first place to share that publicly, I could imagine that they would be pretty upset that I did that. I know I would be upset if someone's sharing my personal business. So no, you are not the jerk. That substitute teacher absolutely is in the wrong, as they had no right to try and make the assumption that you're adopted. My boyfriend of 3 years confessed that he is still not sure if he wants to get married. And after dealing with this for so long, as well as waiting for him to pop the question, I have finally decided that enough is enough, and I have now moved out of the townhouse that we used to live in. And right about now, I'm wondering if I made the right decision, because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my boyfriend and I are both 37 and 36 years old, and we've been together for just under 3 years, including a 9-month period in the middle when he was deployed to the Middle East. During the time he was gone, I took care of his 90-pound dog and completely gutted and renovated his townhouse. When the renovations were done, I moved in, and a month later he came home. We have been living together ever since. During the year that we have lived together, I have essentially been a wife to him. Before I moved in, he lived like a teenage boy. The house was messy and dirty, there was broken furniture, and he kept the poor dog in a crate for 8 hours a day without any walks, and the only cleaning that was happening was done by his mother on an occasional basis. I turned his house into a home. I made sure the dog was exercised and cared for properly. I did the grocery shopping, cooking, laundry. I made sure that every aspect of my boyfriend's life ran smoothly. Early in our relationship, we began to discuss marriage. In these conversations, we discussed how important having children was for each of us, as well as my anxiety about my biological clock. He led me to believe that he would propose before he left for his deployment and that marriage would follow upon his return. But needless to say, he did not propose before he left, which was disappointing but certainly not a deal breaker. I believed that he would propose soon after he returned home from deployment, but he did not. We had serious discussions and arguments about marriage and our timelines in March, June, August, and October. In each instance, he shared that he was not sure yet and attributed this uncertainty to his belief that we needed to improve our communication. Each time, I modified my behavior to improve our relationship relationship, but I did not really see any changes on his part. In August of this past year, we talked about a 5-year plan, and I shared with him how I ideally saw things progressing. I shared my hope to start trying for a baby next summer, and he agreed and said that he was excited and on board. In October, I told him that if he was still unsure about marriage when my birthday rolled around in early January, then I was going to take that as a sign to move on. Over the past couple of months, he has repeatedly told me how much he loves me, how he appreciates me and wants to spend the rest of his life with me. He even hinted about the upcoming proposal. However, on the night before my birthday, he told me he was not going to propose to me because he was having doubts and wanted us to continue to improve our relationship. He expressed the same things about communication, acknowledging that it was him who needed to improve. We had more conversations over the past week, and yesterday I came home from work and I moved as much of my stuff out as I could possibly fit in my car. I am heartbroken because I truly love him and I wanted to spend the rest of my life with him. I also really want to have a baby before it's too late for me, and I can't believe I have to start over at square one. I worry that I will never find someone to spend my life with, that I will never meet someone I love like him. I recognize that at his age and after 3 years, if he isn't sure now, then he will never be. And it's honestly just so hard, and I seriously now don't know what to do. Yeah, I can understand the dilemma here. This is one of those situations where, like, yeah, you've really articulated how you feel, and you felt like both of you were on the same page. Like, he even said, yeah, marriage and having kids are really important to me, or at least alluded to that in some kind of way. So for him to like suddenly double back and be like, well, maybe not so much anymore, or come up with this weird excuse that the both of you need to work on your relationship, only to then clarify that he's the one that needs to change things in his life. It's all really messy, and honestly, it just screams to me that he doesn't want to get married, and he is just not ready to commit to make that step. So with all things considered, I don't blame you for taking this step and sticking to your boundary. I mean, you really did lay it out quite clearly that your boyfriend needs to make a decision, otherwise you're gonna move on with your life, because this is clearly very important to you. And in my opinion, I think you deserve to be with someone who also feels the exact same way. Am I the jerk for ignoring another teacher and telling them that I'm busy in front of my class? Here's what happened. So I'm a 30-year-old male and I've been teaching at a school for 2 years now. I am in my 7th year of teaching and I'm good at it. Students like me and I do well in my class. The other teacher of my subject, Mr. D, that's not his real name, has been at the school for 20 years. He is very particular about how he wants things done, and the majority of students hate him because he is extremely rude and has some anger issues. Many students have told me that they think he is bipolar because he goes from being overly friendly to aggressive at the drop of a hat, but I always shut down these conversations. A student was talking about him and said he has a specific expectation of what he wants you to do, but doesn't tell you how to do it, and then gets angry when you haven't done it the way he wants. This pretty much sums him up perfectly, and it is relevant to what happened next. Ever since I met him, Mr. D has been extremely rude to me, ranging from passive-aggressive comments to outright rudeness, to also saying negative things about me to students. Now, I have always brushed this off, and my head of department has even told him twice that this is unacceptable. Well, several months ago, Mr. D flipped out over something minor. He ended up coming to my class while I was teaching and demanded I talk outside. He attacked how I teach, how he thinks I'm not teaching the students properly by his standards, and how this isn't good enough. Now, this is incorrect, and I tried to get a word in, but he wouldn't let me. This went on for a couple of minutes as I stood there absolutely stunned. I turned around and looked in the room, and about half the class was listening to our conversation. I told him the conversation was over, and then I went back inside. I literally could not speak. I was so angry. I had to leave and go to the bathroom to collect myself, and about 10 minutes later, he sent me an email apologizing. I then emailed him back the next day, and he apologized several more times. Since then, I've ignored him, besides the most essential communication that I would need, which I try to keep to an email. Now, he has noticed this, as he keeps coming up to me and is trying to be nice and speak to me, but I don't give him anything beyond a one-word response and just walking away. The other day, we had an assembly, and some students sang in front of the entire school. Afterwards, he came up to me and said how nice it was, and I said, yeah, and then I just turned and walked away. The next period, he came to my class to speak to me again. So I said to him, it's pretty obvious that I'm busy right now. Send me an email, and if I have any time, I'll reply. I then turned my back to him and I continued speaking to a student. One of my students saw this and said that they they saw me walk away from him during the assembly. They were laughing as they said it, but said that I was being rude to him, which they find very funny because they simply don't like him. Now, I spoke to another teacher and they said that I was being rude and I should have been nicer to Mr. D. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? First of all, in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk at all. Mr. D actually came up to you while you were teaching and literally attacked you in front of all the students. Like, if you really want these students to hate you even more, then just do that in front of someone else's class. Like, that behavior is so unacceptable and it really is completely unprofessional. It also seems like he's only being nice to you because he knows what he did is so wrong. And by the way, you have a paper trail you can submit to HR or something like that. Like, you very easily could forward all those emails to the principal and be like, look, this guy is bothering me. He even admits to being a jerk earlier and he still comes up to me trying to like make amends for something that I don't want to talk about. Because this guy is obnoxious. He really is trying to like manipulate you and basically try to like control how you feel about him. So with all that in mind, I don't think you're the jerk. I think Mr. D is absolutely out of line because he absolutely has no business talking to you in that manner. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out Easy Mode. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.